The museum isn't dead. It's dreaming. And when I clean its bones, I hear them screaming. There are rules taped to the janitor's closet wall. Break even one, and the exhibits will crawl. My name is Louise Carter. I'm 43 years old, recently divorced, and until 3 weeks ago, I was living in the back of my rusted-out pickup truck behind a Waffle House off I-75. So yeah, when the job offer came in, night janitor, decent pay, indoors, with hot coffee and running water, I didn't ask too many questions. I saw a Morris Whitlock Museum of Natural History on the application and thought, hell, I always liked dinosaurs as a kid. How bad could it be? I didn't know the place had been shut down since 1996, that I didn't know I'd be alone in the building from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I sure as hell didn't know about the rules. Point 1. Do not sweep the dinosaur wing after midnight. 2. If you hear footsteps, ignore them. You are alone. 3. Never look into the glass eyes of the taxidermy animals. 4. At 3:17 a.m. sharp, take a 5-minute break in the break room. Lock the door. Do not open it, not even if someone knocks, especially if they know your name. 5. If the exhibits are not where you left them, pretend you didn't notice. 6. You must whistle while mopping. If you stop, they will too, and you don't want to hear what they whistle back. 7. If the lights go out, stand still. Close your eyes. Count to 30. Don't open them until the lights come back. 8. Never clean the Egyptian wing. It's not on the map, and it's not supposed to exist. That I read those rules my first night on the job, half laughing, half wondering if someone was screwing with the new guy. There were 24 of them, written in blocky Sharpie on curling yellowed paper taped to the inside of the janitor's closet. It smelled like bleach and mildew and something ancient. The kind of ancient that doesn't just smell old, it smells angry. I started my shift like any normal janitor, dusting the main foyer, mopping around the Tyrannosaurus skeleton display, whistling some off-key Sinatra tune to myself like the rules said. Easy work, but then came 11:57 p.m. That was when I got stupid. You know how when you're alone in a big building, every little noise becomes the only noise. At 11:57, I was sweeping by the big curved glass cases in the dinosaur wing, marveling at the massive bones and reconstructed skeletons. The T-Rex stood like a king in the center of the room, surrounded by its court, raptors, stegosauruses, and a towering brontosaurus with a neck like a crane. And then I dropped my damn keyring. They clattered under the railing, into the display platform where the raptor skeletons stood frozen mid-pounce. That I crawled under, cursed quietly, reached for the keys, and felt something brush my arm. Not hard, just a tap. That I looked up. One of the raptor heads had shifted slightly, not by much, an inch, maybe 2. It was now angled directly at me. I froze. The air was ice. I checked the clock on my phone. 12:01 a.m. I had broken the first rule. I tried to laugh it off, even as I felt something tightening in my chest. I grabbed the keys, backed out of the display, and stood up. That's when I heard it. Click, tap, click, tap. Tiny clawed feet, skittering across tile. I spun around. The room was still. The skeletons were still. But I could have sworn tap, 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 tap. Something ran past me in the dark corner behind the brontosaurus. I snapped my flashlight toward it and saw a flash of shadow duck behind the legs of the massive skeleton. I took a step back, then another. That's when the T-Rex moved, just an inch. A slight tilt of the head downward, as if watching me. The worst part, the jaws were open now. They hadn't been open before. I dropped my mop. I turned and ran. I made it to the janitor's closet and slammed the door behind me. My lungs were wheezing. My hands were shaking. And then I noticed that something new had been scrawled under the list of rules. In fresh, red marker. You broke rule number 1. It's watching now. I didn't sleep that day. I didn't quit either. I needed the paycheck. But I sure as hell didn't go back to the dinosaur wing the next night. Still, I had to clean somewhere. The taxidermy room. The next night, I stayed close to the first floor. Avoided the dinosaur wing entirely. Around 2 a.m., I found myself outside the taxidermy room. A long hallway lined with stuffed lions, tigers, bears, every cliché predator you can imagine. Their glass eyes glittered in the fluorescent light, each one positioned like they were mid-leap or mid-roar. My mop bucket squeaked on the tile. I remembered rule number 3, never look into the glass eyes of the taxidermy animals. Simple enough. Just clean and keep my eyes low. I swept. I mopped. I whistled. But the further I went down the hallway, the more I felt. Watched. Have you ever tried not to look at something that's staring directly at you? It's almost impossible. One glance wouldn't hurt, I thought. Just a peek that I lifted my eyes and stared into the face of a stuffed mountain lion. Its mouth hung open in a snarl. Its eyes were perfect glass, and in them, I saw a movement, not in the reflection. Inside the eyes, like a ripple, like something swirling beneath the surface. I couldn't move. I couldn't even blink. Then its jaw twitched. The mouth opened wider. My body finally unfroze. I dropped my mop again and ran. Again, just as a series of heavy thuds followed me down the hall, like paws landing hard on tile. I locked myself in the janitor's closet that on the wall. Another new rule had been added. You broke rule number 3. Don't look into the eyes again. It liked you. 3:17 a.m. next night, I obeyed all the rules until 3:17 a.m. that I was in the middle of mopping near the west staircase when my phone buzzed. An alarm I hadn't set. 3:17, break time. Go to the break room now. Weird that I glanced around the dark museum. Then remembered rule number 4. At 3:17 a.m. sharp, take a 5-minute break in the break room. Lock the door. Do not open it. Not even if someone knocks. Especially if they know your name. I didn't hesitate. I ran to the break room. Locked the door. Turned off the lights. Sat in silence. 2 minutes passed. Then came the knock. Luis, a voice called. It's Sam, night manager. Forgot to give you your pay stub. There is no SAM. No one else works nights. I didn't move. Knocking again. Harder. You in there, Luis? I can see the light under the door. There wasn't any light under the door. I turned them off. Then the voice changed and IT started laughing. When I emerged at 3:23 a.m., the hallway was empty, but someone had left something on the break room door. A sticky note, written in a child's handwriting. Next time, open up. That's when I realized this job wasn't about cleaning. IT was about surviving. And I'd already broken 3 rules. There's a hallway that shouldn't be there, behind the Hall of Mammals. It whispers in hieroglyphs, in dead tongues and jackal calls. The map says it ends. The floor plan says it's sealed. But last night, I saw a golden door. And it opened for me. IT started with a map. A crumpled, outdated paper map of the museum I found folded in a drawer next to some expired cleaning supplies. I wasn't looking for it. I was trying to fix the stupid vending machine in the break room because it had started dispensing teeth instead of candy. Yeah, I said teeth. Don't ask me where they came from. The point is, I found the map, and I stared at it for a long time because there was a wing on that map that didn't exist. In real life. At least, not on any tours or signs. Tucked between the Hall of Mammals and the archives was a faded label. Egyptian Antiquities, closed to public, 1994. I immediately thought of rule number 8. Never clean the Egyptian wing. It's not on the map, and it's not supposed to exist. Except it was on the map, old, hand-sketched, smudged, but real. Something ancient in me stirred. I should have thrown that map away, burned it, flushed it. But I didn't. I unfolded it, traced the path with my finger, and realized there was a hidden corridor behind the Hall of Mammals. The hallway curved inward like a spiral, ending in a circular room marked with a strange symbol, an eye within a pyramid inside a jackal's skull. And the worst part, there was a handwritten note in the corner of the map. Only walk the hall if the jackal calls. That night, I told myself I wouldn't look for it. I stayed busy, vacuumed the north wing, whistled through the fossil archive, took my 3:17 a.m. break in the locked room like I was supposed to. But at 4:12 a.m., while sweeping by the lion exhibit, I heard it. A howl. Not a wolf. Not a dog. Something dry-throated, old, hollow. It echoed once, then again. From the direction of the Hall of Mammals. I checked my phone. 4:13 a.m. I should have stayed put, but the map was burning a hole in my pocket. The hallway was there, where there had only been a blank wall the night before. Now there was a narrow opening between 2 display cases, just wide enough for me to slip through sideways. The lights buzzed and flickered behind me as I stepped in. I took one last look back, at safety, at rules, at reason, then followed the spiral path on the old map. The air turned cold, dry, heavy. The silence in that corridor was not empty. It was listening, and then I saw it. A golden door covered in rusted hieroglyphs. Symbols that pulsed faintly, like veins. At the center, a jackal's head in polished obsidian with ruby eyes that flicked toward me as I approached. That I didn't touch it, that I didn't have to. The door opened on its own. The room that doesn't exist, the Egyptian wing, looked untouched. No dust, no cobwebs, no decay. Stone statues lined the walls. Tall, thin, crowned figures with elongated limbs and sharp eyes. Sarcophagi stood open and empty. Sand covered the floor in perfect spirals, as if something had crawled its way out from beneath. In the center of the room stood a pedestal on it, a mirror framed in bone and gold. That I approached it, and the reflection that looked back at me wasn't mine. That it wore my face, my uniform, but its eyes were missing, just hollow black pits, and its mouth hung open, as if screaming silently. As I stared, it began to mimic my movements with a half-second delay. That I waved. It waved. I blinked. It didn't. I backed up slowly, and then I saw what stood behind the mirror. A figure, wrapped in linen, face masked in golden plating, arms crossed. A mummy, but it was moving 0.1 inch. Then another, joints cracking, bones groaning. Its head turned toward me and whispered a single word that I couldn't understand, but my bones recognized. The language was older than sound, older than earth. I ran. I didn't stop until I was back in the janitor's closet. The hallway was gone, but now the wall had new writing below the rules. You saw your reflection. It saw you back. The jackal will follow now. The jackal follows. Things changed after that. The next few nights, I tried to keep to safe areas, followed every rule, never broke a pattern, but I kept seeing shadows, long-eared, four-legged things, darting at the edge of my vision. Scratches appeared on my mop handle. My keys smelled like blood. On night 10, I opened my locker and found something inside. A scrap of ancient cloth, stained, torn. It smelled like rot. Wrapped inside it was a human tooth, still warm. That night, I mopped until my hands bled. That night, I whistled until my throat went raw. That night, I locked myself in the break room at 3:17 a.m. But there was already someone inside. A shape crouched in the corner, whispering in tongues, scratching glyphs into the tiles with something sharp and wet. I backed out slowly and didn't stop walking until the sky began to turn blue. The museum talks back. The museum began speaking in other ways. When I opened the janitor's closet the next shift, the rules had changed. Some were crossed out in thick red paint. Others had been added. 9. If you find an object that looks ancient, don't take it. It's not a gift. It's bait. 10. You must never look under the mummy exhibit's bandages. 11. The reflection is growing stronger. Do not bring mirrors into the building. But the worst change was this. The final rule now read. 12. The Egyptian wing is awake, and it knows your name. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't madness. Something inside the museum was crawling out of its grave. Something that remembered worship, sacrifice, servitude. And I had trespassed. I had looked. I had listened. I had entered the room that should not exist. The final sign on the 13th night. The museum didn't open its lights for me when I turned on my flashlight. The walls were covered in fresh hieroglyphs, written in blood. The T-Rex skeleton was gone. The lion exhibit was empty. The taxidermy eyes had all been gouged out. And down the hallway, something was chanting my name, over and over. In that same dry voice from the mirror, the janitor's closet was gone. My mop had turned to bone. And on the wall, smeared in red, was the phrase, "We remember the servants who opened our tombs." I haven't quit yet. I can't. Because every time I try to leave, I wake up back here, back in my uniform, back with the keys in my hand, back in this cursed building, where time loops like a coiled snake and memory dissolves like sand. The Egyptian wing is not a room. It's a doorway, and I fear that last night. I walk through it. His eyes follow you, but not with paint. He's trapped in canvas, reeking of saint. He'll offer you secrets wrapped in a grin, but if you speak back, you'll trade places with him. The museum has corridors that don't appear on blueprints, doors that vanish after use, and clocks that never agree with the sky. But the portrait wing, I swear it wasn't there for the first 2 weeks. I would have remembered it. You can't miss something like that. It showed up the night after I heard scratching from the inside of the fire extinguisher cabinet. I was on my regular path, clean the glass displays, mop around the woolly mammoth skeleton, hum something tuneless just to fill the dead air, and then, past the Hall of Insects and right before the archives, There was a hallway I'd never seen before, dim, silent, choked with dust. The top of the entrance hung a crooked, oxidized plaque. Portraits of forgotten patrons, 1887 to 1899. I stared for a long time, and then I remembered a rule I'd never read before, but felt like I should have. Never speak to the man in the portrait wing. The Hall of Faces. Curiosity is a disease. I caught it the day I entered this job. That hallway was cold in a way no heater could fix, as if it had never been warm, as if nothing living had walked it in over a century. The walls were lined with massive oil paintings, Victorian-era faces, old men with waxy skin and wide eyes, women in funeral dresses, children with coal-black pupils and curled smiles that I passed. 27 portraits before I reached him. He wasn't labeled. No plaque, no artist credit, just a massive, floor-to-ceiling canvas of a man in black sitting on a red chair, and he was grinning. Not a normal grin. Too many teeth. Too perfect. His eyes looked directly into mine, and unlike the others, his paint wasn't faded. His suit gleamed. His shoes shone. The background behind him was shifting. Yes, shifting. I could swear the shadows moved slightly. Breathed, and then he spoke. "Good evening, Luis," he said, his mouth not moving, only the words leaking from the canvas like smoke. "How's the Egyptian wing treating you?" I stepped back. Cold sweat soaked my shirt. I hadn't told anyone about the Egyptian wing. That I hadn't told anyone anything. "You've broken rules," the portrait said, smiling wider. 3.5, maybe 4. Depends how you count. I whispered, "What are you?" And that was my mistake. A conversation you can't undo. The moment I spoke, the lights flickered violently. Behind me, the hallway stretched, tripled in length. When I turned to run, the floor turned to marble, black-veined and pulsing, and the man in the painting chuckled. "Now we can talk." He whispered that he stood up, inside the canvas, walked around in it like a fish in a bowl, his feet making no sound. Every other portrait in the hallway turned their heads in unison toward me, and the man kept speaking. "You should be grateful. Most janitors never last long enough to be invited here." I didn't answer. "You want answers, don't you? About the rules, about the museum, about the thing in the mirror." I stepped closer again, foolishly. "Yes," I said. That he smiled, wider than before. His gums were black. "You'll get them, piece by piece, one for every night you survive. But there's a price." He paused. "Talk to me too much, and you'll become part of the collection." Rule rewrites. After I escaped the portrait wing by sprinting until the walls turned back to brick, the museum punished me. That's the only word I can use. Punished. My mop had teeth. My reflection had a pulse. The vending machine spat out Polaroids of me sleeping. Each rule I broke, each slip, hesitation, mistake, made things worse. Rule number 1, about the dinosaur wing. The raptors now left scratches on the tile, even when I wasn't nearby. Rule number 4, about the 3:17 a.m. break. Something knocked on every door that night, at exactly the same time, even the emergency exit. And rule number 8, about the Egyptian wing. Let's just say that some sarcophagi in the storage vault now sit open. But the worst was this. The janitor's closet had been repainted, and new rules were added. Not by me. Not by hand. By something else. They were written in blood again, not dry, still wet. 13. Do not speak to the portraits, especially the man in black. 14. If you already spoke to him, it's too late. You'll hear him in your dreams. 15. If he offers you a deal, decline politely, or not at all. I woke that morning with paint chips under my fingernails. The deal on the 17th night, I went back. I know what you're thinking. Why? Because he knew my name. Because he offered answers. Because I felt like I was running out of time. That night, I found the portrait wing again. It was waiting. The lights flickered on when I stepped in. All 27 faces smiled this time. That he was still seated, still grinning. "I thought you'd return," he said. I stayed quiet. "Good. Smart man. Listening earns you rewards." He stood in the painting, turned around, and pointed to another portrait. It was covered in a black cloth. "Would you like to see who's next?" I said nothing. He waited, then nodded. "Another night, then." I turned to leave. Before I stepped out, he whispered one final thing. "You've lasted longer than the last janitor." I turned back. "What happened to him?" I asked, unable to stop myself. The man smiled, and then, with both hands, peeled back his face. Beneath it was another face, burned, melted, screaming silently. He asked too many questions, he said. The next portrait night 18, there was a new portrait in the hallway, still covered, but fresher. The canvas was still drying, and taped beneath it was a sticky note, childlike handwriting again. Don't let him finish it. I've tried every trick since. I don't clean that hallway. I don't look in that direction. I whistle. Louder. I follow every other rule, but I know it's too late. The painting is of me, it's not finished yet, but it's filling in more every night. My eyes appeared on night 2, my mouth on night 21. And last night, the painted version of me blinked. You followed the rules, broke them too. Now something deep inside sees you. The museum shifts, the doors decay, and screams replace the signs that say, "You may." The final shift, the museum feels different now. Not just haunted, not just cursed, sentient. Every step I take, the tiles react, sometimes too cold, sometimes soft like flesh beneath my boots. The air no longer smells like dust and ammonia. Now it's copper, decay, and something like ancient incense. The janitor's closet is gone. The vending machine sings at 2:33 a.m. The cameras point at places no one walks. And my face, my real face, no longer appears in any reflection. There's a new sign by the front doors tonight, point one I didn't put there. One no visitor ever saw. Painted in fresh black ink across the exit. Welcome to the collection. The moving double-LS it started when I tried to take a shortcut to the archive wing. That hallway used to be a straight shot, but that night it stretched. Like elastic. 20 steps became 40, then 80. The doors on the left started changing. Security closet turned into specimen holding. Fire exit became taxonomy overflow. Archives shifted to containment breach. The air buzzed with low-frequency static. The floor trembled softly. And then, I saw my own body walk past me, mop in hand. But its face was empty skin, and its reflection in the case glass waved at me. The final is when I returned to the lobby, if you can call it that anymore. I found the rule board. It had changed again. Not scribbled over, not scratched, rewritten, carved, burned into the wall with a branding iron. These were the new rules. 16. The exhibits are aware of your name. Don't say it aloud again. 17. If you see a version of yourself, do not engage. You are being replaced. 18. When the museum starts showing you rooms from your own past, do not enter. That is not memory, it's bait. 19. When your portrait smiles without your reflection, it's already too late. 20. The museum has selected its final exhibit. My name was carved below those words, not painted, etched. Deep. Bleeding. Rooms from my past. That night, I walked past the African mammal's wing. What should have been taxidermy lions and jungle dioramas. But I saw something else. My childhood bedroom. Door slightly open. Nightlight blinking. My favorite toy on the floor. I heard my mother's voice call my name from inside. I stepped forward. The floor melted into grass. The wallpaper peeled into sky. The nightlight turned into a blinking eye. I stepped back. Just in time. The door slammed shut and screamed like a person. The museum isn't haunted. It's parasitic. It feeds on memory, guilt, curiosity. It wants you to step willingly into your own grave. The exhibit our own 2 nights later. I received a key in my locker, NO tag, NO explanation. But I knew exactly where it went. There's a door behind the staff-only sign in the west wing, rusted shut for months. That night, it was open. Inside was a glass case, 6 feet long. Spotlights angled above it. Labels printed in sterile black font. Subject number 1134. The last janitor, species, human. Status, preserved. Date of acquisition, TBD. The case was emptied and I didn't wait to see for how long. They came for me on night 30. Not creatures, exhibits. The wax figures from the history wing shambled down the hall in military formation. The insect specimens from the second floor clicked across the ceiling. Even the paintings peeled themselves free and slithered along the walls like spider webs soaked in oil. And behind them all, in a tall red chair with legs that didn't move, but floated, came the man from the portrait wing. His face now wore mine, and his voice came from every speaker, intercom, and phone in the building. Luis is being retired. Welcome the new exhibit. The final break roomie ran to the one place I always felt safe. The break room point 3:17 a.m. I locked the door, but the room was different. The vending machine was gone. The table was set for one. A TV on the wall flickered to life and played footage of me sweeping the halls, nodding to shadows, staring into mirrors, and the subtitle read, "Cycle complete." My phone buzzed at a text from a number labeled, "The Museum." It said, "We've chosen you. Stay still. We're opening the case now." The GLSS, the door opened on its own. A whisper echoed, "Join the others." And I saw myself again, identical, down to the bandages on my arm, the stain on my boot, the scar on my chin. He smiled. I didn't. He reached out. I stabbed him with the broken end of my mop. He bled sand. The escapee. I ran through doorways that warped behind me, through rooms that shifted time and gravity. I ran past the whale skeleton. It screamed like a choir. Past the mummy. It bowed. Past the paintings. They looked away. I reached the front doors, and this time, they opened. The world only said it was morning. Bright. Clear. Normal. I collapsed in the parking lot, coughing dust, shaking, screaming. No1 came. No police. No fire. Alarms. No sirens. Only silence. And when I looked back, the museum was gone. Only an empty field remained. But on the dirt, scrawled in a trail of bones and wax. Once a curator, always a curator. Epilogue. I don't sleep much anymore. Mirrors flickered. My house smells like embalming fluid. And sometimes, I hear announcements over the speakers in my dreams. Luis, room 34 needs mopping. The guests have arrived. My portrait hangs in my hallway now. It grins, and sometimes it blinks.